Take an adventure into the paranormal, where you will discover many haunted locations, hear personal stories about paranormal encounters, and see a supernatural world through the eyes of experienced paranormal researchers Joe Franke and Dr. Leigh. Joe Franke is a veteran in the paranormal world, beginning his journey in 1986 as an apprentice, working alongside his mentors, renowned researchers Ed and Lorraine Warren. Today, Joe is an accomplished paranormal researcher, demonologist, consultant, and lecturer with over 37 years of experience. Dr. Leigh is the founder of Exploration Paranormal, based out of Southwest Central Florida, with more than 35 years' experience researching and investigating paranormal activity. She is a member of Paranexus, Anomalous Research Association, and the Witches Paranormal Society. Now, your hosts of Passport to the Paranormal, Joe Franke and Dr. Leigh.
Hey there, Joe. How are you doing?
Hey, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good.
Those things.
Oh, hanging in there. Pretty good, though. Yep. But anyway, since Joe and I are just chit-chatting back and forth, we just want to welcome everybody to the show today. We are looking forward to answering any questions you guys may have, so feel free to fill up the comments with all those questions. And Joe, do you mind sharing what you have there on your shirt?
I had some fantastic evidence. Look, I got a ghost caught on tape. See? Best evidence. Ghost caught on. Hey, enough of that. You know I'm a big dumb animal.
It's fun. At least you have the porn turned off today.
Okay.
We're good.
I forgot last week.
Oh, actually, Josh is upstairs asking questions already. He wants to know how we came up with the show idea. And I'm going to pass that question off to you because we kind of started brainstorming and you had a midnight epiphany.
Yeah, well, you and I, we've been talking about this for quite a while. Mm-hmm. And, after a lot of arm twisting by you, something I always wanted to do, just didn't think I'd find the time in my schedule, but then I see you and I'm like, you're my inspiration. I don't know where you find the time to do everything you do. So
I try.
But seriously, we wanted to do a show together and share our knowledge and experience with those that would listen. Mm-hmm. I'm happy to do it, but I like to joke around. We joke around all the time, but when we talk about some serious topics, I like to educate people. I mean, I'm not going to be around forever. You're not going to be around forever, and I am the age now that Ed and Lorraine were when I met them, I believe, or just around that age, so it's like, got to just remind myself of how old I'm getting, so, so we came up with, the idea to do a show, a podcast. And then it didn't take us long to figure out what we wanted to call it, though, and Passport to the Paranormal. It does have some meaning. We talk about how spirits, demons, negative entities get into our lives. They have to be let in by our own free will. We let them in, whether we realize it or not. So, we weren't sure what we were going to call it, but I said, hey, how about like Passport to the Paranormal? It's kind of fun, but kind of has some meaning behind it, so that's kind of how it got started. It's been in the back of my mind for quite a while, so I appreciate you keeping me in check.
Well, sometimes wrangling you is like giving a cat a bath. No.
Yeah. I got 5 of them.
But actually, something that just popped in mind too is when you were talking about the different entities and the Passport to the Paranormal. It's almost like another added on meaning to that is we give the spirits one more stamp in their passport book when they come into our lives, kind of thing.
That's true.
Yeah. And I can't talk today. I'm so tired. So bear with me.
No, that's all right. No, I mean, last week was a great show. I hope people watched it with John. I was so happy you surprised me with that. I did send John the message.
Did you
and
finally?
John's listening. I apologize. It only took me a week to do it, but I sent John a message. I'm eager for him to get back in touch with me so we can get together.
And I'll follow up with him.
I think he's like 25 minutes down the highway here in Connecticut. So it's not like we live far from each other. Just life gets in the way,
Yeah. And I'll be following up with him because he's supposed to be on my other show next week. So
yeah. So I made sure I got a hold of him so you wouldn't hey, go get a hold of you. No.
Yep. And so yeah, Josh is watching. Like I said, he's upstairs. He kind of disappeared upstairs and I think they're playing games. Him and Aiden are probably up there. And then I was going to say hi, Stephanie. She's just joining as well. But if you guys are watching, feel free to comment. Let us know, where you're listening from. If you have any questions whatsoever, there's no plan tonight, just to chit back and forth or chit chat back and forth.
Right. I'm going to say worse.
I know. The one thing I did want to mention is we did have plans to go live next week, but I was reminded when I sent in the information for the show that the station is off next week. So you and I won't have a show next week, but we will be returning in 2 weeks. And that's when we'll have your daughters and Aiden will be joining us.
Yeah. All right. So we'll be on the 29th. We'll be back. Okay. Yep. Thank you for letting me know.
And I'm going to reschedule our guest that we're supposed to have next week for later in July.
Okay.
So we'll
which
will work better for them anyway. I'm assuming because they have a lot of events that they haven't announced yet.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to want to talk to them.
I guess I should check with my daughters to make sure they're available. I did mention it to Emily, but I haven't even told Haley yet. But
okay. I know Aiden's always available. So.
If not, I can't have my wife on because she works. She's at work. I don't know if she's listening, but hi, honey.
Yeah. Josh brought that idea up. Yeah, Josh brought that idea up. He's like, well, I can get on it and his wife can get on.
Yeah, she would love to. I mean, I like I said, when I got started, we were together. And Laurel used to investigate with us. And she would she would take the notes. She would take a lot of notes and stuff. And when we went around with Ed and Lorraine, and I remember we went up to Colby Sawyer College back in, God, I want to say 1993. And we were going to stay in the Academy building. They had rooms with beds and stuff. And, we got up there and Ed and Lorraine weren't going to stay there. Laurel and I were. And, we got up there and there was a lot of turmoil up at the college. There was so much hype about this that I think the president kind of got upset and he goes, I don't want anybody staying here. There's enough publicity about this place. And so we're up there without a hotel room, and I think Ed and Lorraine had the last room. I'm like, okay, I'll just sleep in the car, but we were able to get a room, but we kind of hung out with them until a room vacated, but that was a lot of fun. But, Laurel and I, used to work together with them until she became pregnant with my son. And then, she kind of bowed out and then the twins came. So obviously the family was more important.
Right.
But I have to give her a shout out if you don't mind, because she's always reminding me to tell people this. And, when she attends my lectures, I always give her a shout out. So Laurel was the one, if you haven't heard me tell this story, Laurel is the one that saw in the newspaper that the Warrens were going to be speaking. So she always reminds me of that. She goes, yeah, you wouldn't have met them if it wasn't for me. I'm like, yeah, okay. I wanted to go see a movie that night. So, she was with me that night when we first met them. And, of course they chose me though. They didn't want her, but, Lorraine fell in love with Laurel though. So,
yeah, and it was funny when I had met Josh. I didn't keep it hidden from him, but I didn't really tell him how crazy I was until we got to know each other. And then even after we got married, the craziness came out a little bit at a time.
Yep.
Until I jumped in full force 5 years ago, and then him and Aiden just kind of followed along.
Well, we laugh about it and we reminisce, but they're our spouses are very supportive. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. She gets upset sometimes. I just came back from a tough case in New York, and I was there for 5 days, Tuesday through Saturday. And, so it's a good 5 days by the time I left and got back. So, yeah, Josh said she tricked me. So was she happy about it? No, but she's very understanding and supportive because she knows that I'm off helping somebody. So I wasn't out having a good time out and hanging at a bar or something with my colleagues. We were exhausted actually, but we spent a lot of time in the home that we were looking at, and so it's a lot of time away from family. I don't usually go away for that long, or if it's somewhere local, I'll go and come home. But you have to have a supportive, not only a supportive spouse, but your children.
Yeah.
And my children, all three of my children, who are all adults now, but they've always wanted to get into this work, especially Emily. So I that's why I said, hey, Heather, why don't we have the kids on and say, what's it like to be the child of a paranormal investigator, a paranormal researcher? Yeah. And I know Haley's expressed a lot of interest, and my son does too, and I keep telling him, I don't want you involved in this. You're still young. And like, well, Dad, you were 18 years old when you started. So they kind of got me there, but I'm seriously though, I'm very leery about getting them involved in this, but I got a case that just came in through on Monday. It came to me personally. A woman locally on Facebook had one of those chat group, not chat group, Facebook page for mothers of Wallingford. I live in Connecticut here.
Yep.
And she said she was desperate for help. I mean, she was scared. There was some stuff going on in her house, and she's an 18-month-old child that was seeing something that was scaring him, and he was crying like uncontrollably and looking at, eyes were fixated at a part of the room like he was seeing something. And the dog, that little dog too, is trembling and shaking. So, right away, all these other mothers in the group, you need to call a priest. You need to call this. You need to do this. You need to do that. My daughter jumps on Emily. She's like, no, you need to call my dad. So, and it turns out, literally, they're about 3/4 of a mile from my house. So I haven't been over there yet, but I've talked to the woman, and, we've done a lot of good work just remotely.
Right.
But I am going to go over there maybe this weekend just to meet with her and her husband. But I mean, they're young. They're probably about 30 years old, young to me, so the reason I'm telling you this is I asked Emily if she'd want to come and take notes for me and stuff. I sent her out real slow because I haven't brought her on a case. She comes to my lectures and she'll help me with the technical equipment and that stuff. And so she's learned a lot just by listening to me talk about it. And, that's how I learned. By listening to the Warrens, not only do classes with us, but also I attended most of their lectures, not only to learn, but, I also helped them out with, crowd control and stuff like that.
Joe the bouncer.
No, I wouldn't put it that way, but, I did have to ask a few people to leave once in a while because they were being rowdy or disrespectful. I won't stand for that, but people, on the most part, were very gracious, very nice.
Yeah, and it's funny because even you and John were talking about it last week about how you guys have like almost shielded your kids from it and not really encouraged them to get in it. Yeah. And here I am, the minute Aiden asked, I'm like, sure, come on, and I'm bringing him on an investigation with me, and he.
That's all right. I still love you.
Yeah. Oh, but he's had a blast. He doesn't do residentials because he wasn't 18, so I never took him on a residential just because I didn't want any legalities or anything like that. But he did several with my last team, and then when we investigated Goldfield for the documentary, he shined. We were like so proud of him. I mean, he ran he did his own EVP session in the Goldfield Cemetery.
That's cool. The kids know technology. Yep. I mean, I know a lot about computers, but they, if I have a problem with my computer, I'm like, Joe, get down here, or Emily, help me out. And, they know a lot about technology, and they've been very helpful, helping me set up. If I had an audio problem or something, they usually can figure it out faster than I can.
Yeah. I still rely on Josh and Aiden with my tech stuff. if it's more than plugging something in.
Hi, Courtney.
Yeah. And I actually make Josh listen to all of my EVP sessions. He does the grunt work.
Well, yeah, too. Yeah, you get, I've done that all the time. I'm like, hey, listen to this. Maybe they hear something I don't, or maybe they hear something different. I want to be, with EVPs, I like them to be like crystal clear.
Right.
We got a few, Stephanie actually got a few EVPs up in New York, and they weren't really clear as to, they were odd noises or voices, but we couldn't really discern whether they were ours. The house was on a very busy road. It might have been someone outside. We had left all the windows open because the place had been closed down for like a year and a half. It was very stuffy in there. But they're a big help in looking at the evidence with me or for me, because you got a lot of evidence to go through. You got a bunch of cameras and audio equipment. So they're a big help. So, I hope at least the girls can be on, because, but I haven't even asked Haley yet. So thank God we got pushed out a week. So she has time to plan.
Yeah, definitely. And hello, Courtney and Vicky. Thank you for joining us tonight. If you guys have any questions, just feel free to ask. We are more than happy to answer them. We're just kind of chit-chatting back and forth. No specific topic tonight. We figured we'd make this a get to know your host show before we continue on with some of our other topics and everything that we have planned. So, we're definitely going to have to work on a schedule for topics and everything.
We will.
Like that.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say starting to slow down, but I was working on, going to start working on our PowerPoint and stuff. So, hopefully we'll be doing some lectures down in Florida. I can't wait. I'm really excited about your book coming out. I'm really excited about your book coming out.
Yes, exactly. September 11th. So I'm looking forward to that. And, but if you guys watching have any ideas on topics or any special guests you want me to try to reach out and get, I've worked on a list and I've been starting sending out emails, and I figured what we could do is maybe rotate. One week we have guests, the next week just you and I talk about a topic.
Sure. I mean, I told you I would like to get, I got a couple of people on my wish list, but some of my people are from the distant past, like, what was her name? Hodson from the UK. The girl that lived through the Enfield poltergeist. I don't know if that's possible, so I don't want to get people's hopes up, but Janet Hodson, I think her name is. And so I've got some contacts in the UK. I'm going to see if they can get a hold of her and see if she'd like to do an interview, because that was one of the Warren cases that they worked on. So maybe she'd be gracious enough to accept my invitation. Unless she looks me up. If she does a background check, forget it.
Oh, that Joe. No, just so Josh is asking, what got you both first interested in the paranormal? Do you want to go first or you want me to go?
No, you go ahead. Ladies first.
Oh, you mean I actually get to talk for once? No.
Hey, nice glasses.
Oh, thank you. They're my dollar store readers.
When you get mad at me, I'll just compliment something. And
exactly.
Play off the track.
I have contacts, but they're only for distance, not for close up.
Yeah, I got to wear them. Well, I don't need mine, but if I want to read the comments, I'm going to need them. So.
I know, that's why I'm always putting
playing
them up
trombone, comes with age.
But one of the things that got me first started is I was trying to think of the exact age. I want to say like 16 or 17, but I was a junior in high school. And I started seeing visions of my grandfather in dreams. He would be walking the hallway at the house, appearing at the foot of my bed. And I always would scream at him because whenever I'd brush my teeth, I'd be, you spit and you stand up and you look in the mirror and he'd be standing behind me in the mirror. And, and he had passed 10 plus years prior to that and had never been in that house. So I'd always wondered.
Transparent, or was he solid?
He was solid.
Wow.
Yeah. And there were times, though, where only his head appeared.
That must have been pretty scary for you.
That freaked me out when the head appeared. And I couldn't figure out why he was there, because we didn't even buy the house until, I want to say 3 or 4 years after he passed. So it wasn't like he had ever been there or any connection to the house. And back in the 80s, that's what we were taught. Your house is haunted because someone died here. is what everyone was teaching back then. So I was at the library, bugging the crap out of the librarian getting books, and I'd go home with a stack of books because we, of course, didn't have the internet back then. And it just kind of developed from there. And I just still kind of researched. But then when we went to Gettysburg one summer, I met Mark Nesbitt, who runs the Ghost of Gettysburg tours and the candlelight walking tours out there. And I talked his ear off and asked every question possible. And that kind of continued to fuel my interest in the field.
Wow. That's cool. That's a cool story. For me, I don't know if I think I was destined for this, and I'll tell you why. I was named after my maternal grandfather. And he was very proud of that fact. So I was very close to him. However, I was 3.5 when he passed, but I do remember him. But I remember the night that he passed away. It was I think it was a Sunday night, because my parents said they're out in the living room watching football. And we were in bed. My sister was in a crib then. She was only maybe a year and a half. My brother was a year and a half older than me. So we had bunk beds. I was on the bottom because I was big then too. To break the bed. So I was sound asleep, and they come running out. And I had my eyes closed, and I said, "What, Mommy? Somebody called Joseph. My parents just kind of looked at each other and said, he's just sleepwalking. He's having a dream." Put me back to bed. A couple of minutes later, same thing. I came out. What? Someone called me. Somebody called me. And, so she puts me back to bed again, and the phone rings, and it's my grandmother. And she's like, "I can't wake up your father." My grandfather was a very religious man, very devout Catholic. We'd go to church almost every morning before work. He worked for the railroad. So I think back then they had 5 o'clock mass, I think, every day. And sometimes he would come and pick me up, and bring me with him. Maybe that was on weekends, but, maybe not that early. But I remember sitting in the front seat of his car trying to look over the dashboard. There was no child safety back then, and I'm still here. So what I remember was happening. I'm getting ahead of myself. My grandfather had passed away. He was sitting in his chair. They had a chair in the bedroom. He was up in the bedroom, and he was reading the Bible. He used to read the Bible every night before bed. So my grandfather definitely is a saint. I know he is, and I know he's protecting me too, one of them. And what I remember is hearing my name being called. I remember a light, almost like a tunnel, and I see a light at the end of the tunnel. I could see it now when I close my eyes. I'll never forget it. I call it my divine experience, because what I feel that was I heard God calling my grandfather. But I was his namesake, and I was so close to him. We had that bond that I heard that. So I mean, that's obviously my first paranormal or divine experience. And then fast forward like 15 years later, when I met Ed and Lorraine, I mean, I was always fascinated with the topic, and I would watch the movies and the TV shows and read the stories. And I used to remember reading the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, and stuff like that. But when I met Ed and Lorraine, I don't know if everybody knows this story, so if you want, I'll tell it again. When we went to see them that night, and I walked up to the table, and Lorraine was at the table, the registration table, taking the money and tickets. And she looked at me and she's like, "Honey, have we met before?" She called everybody honey. And I said, "No, Lorraine." I said, "I've heard a lot about you, saw you on TV, print media, things like that. But I've never seen your show." And she's just looking at me. I didn't know what she was doing at the time, but she later explained to me she was reading my aura, supernatural glow that everybody has that emanates from their body. And she's like, "Make sure you see Ed and I after the show. I want to talk to you. There's a reason why you're here tonight." Okay, so here I am, 18 years old, sitting I could barely keep a thought in my head because we're watching the show. I'm trying to listen, but I'm like, what does she want to talk to me about? So after the show, I remember Tony and Ed were packing up, and Lorraine's so sweet. She's trying to answer all the questions and people coming up to her, autographs, things like that. He's like, come on, Lorraine, let's go. Let's go. You know, he's going out the back door. They got the station wagon loading everything up. And he's like, come on, take the kids with us. Come on. So across the street, there was a diner. And so we went to the diner, and I'm sitting across from Lorraine, and Laurel's here to my left. Tony and Ed were over here. And she's holding my hand, and she's looking, and she's reading my aura. And she says, you know, honey, she says, you were meant to do this work.
Mm-hmm.
She, would you like to come and work with Ed and I? And without missing a beat, I'm like, yeah, of course, you know, absolutely. So, you know, that's how I got started. And then the rest, as they say, is history. Then they started with the classes. There's about a half a dozen, maybe 8 of us, including Laurel. And there was a place in Newtown, Connecticut called Hawley Manor. It's still there now. It's, I think, the inn at Newtown now, but it was a restaurant / inn, I think. And in the back room, there was a little, I call it a coat closet. It was not much bigger than one. And there was seats, would put the seats around the room in a U shape. And then Ed had a table, and he would bring in his tape recorder and some files and his cassette tapes and some video. And he's like, okay, we're gonna talk about the Amityville case. And he would break out the interview tapes from the Amityville case and would talk about it. He'd tell us what happened, what the Lutzes experienced, all that stuff, you know. And sometimes when I tell this story, people say, geez, Joe, you were at Amityville? I'm like, no. I was like 8 years old. I wasn't there. But that's how I first learned about it, but learned what really happened from the people that worked the case.
Right.
And also other cases like the Rhode Island case, all the cases that the Conjuring movies are based on. The Enfield Poltergeist is one that I was really intrigued by. I don't know if they spent much time there, but they did go there and interview the family and everything. So anyway, I know I get long-winded, but
that's
you know, that's how I really got started, and it just snowballed from there. And I'll tell you, I'll just add one other thing if I could. So what the Warrens used to do back then is they would have what they called a ghost safari. And what that would mean is we would meet at a restaurant, in the parking lot of a restaurant in Monroe, Connecticut, because that's the town they lived in. And people would sign up for it at one of their lectures. And it probably was about a dozen cars that day. It was the first one I went on. And everyone would take their own cars, and we would follow Ed's station wagon to different sites. I remember we went to a church, and then everybody would get out of their cars and would just walk, do like a circle, and they would tell us about what happened here. There was an exorcism here that they were involved in with Bishop McKenna or whatever. And can you
knocked out your video. I can hear you, but you knocked out your video.
Yeah, hold on, guys. I'm sorry. I must have hit my computer.
It's a sign. Oh, you still there, Joe? Yeah, Todd, I see you laughing in the background. I told you it was going to be interesting working with Joe.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, you can hear me, but you can't see me. That's not too bad. You guys get that benefit.
Exactly.
I'm going to work on it. I'll finish this story.
Okay.
So anyway, the last stop on the tour was Dudleytown, Connecticut, which was known as like the cursed village. There's a lot of different variations to that, but Ed had just recently came off a heart attack, I think. So he did not go down with us, but one of the other students guided us down there because he had been there many, many times. So we come back up, we go down there, we come back up, and Ed and Lorraine were still there. They said they were going to go down and then meet us down the street at a restaurant, but they were low on gas. So Ed couldn't get the car started, so he thought he had run out of gas. Well, I had my tools in my car. Everyone else started to leave, and I'm looking at Laurel like, I can't just leave these people here. So I had my tools in my car. I pulled my tools out. I'm still working on this, folks. And I started looking at the car about 20, 30 minutes. I'm like, geez, I'm laying across the car. I'm like, well, you're getting gas in the carburetor, and I thought about it for a minute. I'm like, could it be that simple? So I said, Ed, hop out of the car for a second. I go in his fuse box and I pull the fuse for the fuel pump, and it was blown. So I grabbed the fuse out of the radio, stuck it in there, and the car started right up. So they were like thrilled. They were so happy. Come on, kids, we're going to dinner, this, that, and the other thing. They took us back to the house. And that's where I got my signed copy of The Demonologist that I treasure today. And he told me a story about Amityville and what happened after Amityville in the house. And I can finish that in a minute. I'm really going to try to get my camera going. You want to take it for a minute?
I guess I can take it. And we do have another question for you, but we'll get to that when you're done. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to let us know. We still have a few minutes before we have to cut the show to an end. But I wanted to add on because I didn't even think of it until Joe started talking. But with my grandfather, we were really close. And yeah, he's probably eating cookies back there, Courtney. Doesn't want us to see it. We were always really close, and he had died at 5. I was 5.5 when he passed. And it was, we were outside playing in the snow, and he had our heart attack out there. And of course, I don't remember too much of it, but I still remember when he fell face first into the snow. But then my parents got me out of there real quick while they handled everything. And it looks like we've lost Joe altogether. So you guys have me until he comes back. So yeah, we were always really close, and that always hit me really hard, even though, trauma that you don't think of as you get older. And what I found interesting is many years later, this was, trying to think of how many years ago already, but several years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 5 kidney failure. They said my kidneys were starting to fail according to the blood work, and everything was going wrong. But biopsies came back. They're healthy kidneys. They couldn't figure out what was causing this blood work to come back that way. Then, of course, when you get diagnosed with something like that, you have a mild pity party. So I had a day's worth of pity party. And one night during those few moments where I was feeling down and thinking my life was over, my grandfather came to me at night in my dream, put his hand on my arm, and had told me it wasn't my time yet, basically. And when I opened my eyes, he was standing next to the side of the bed, and then he faded away. So when all that happened, the next time I went to the doctor visit, my kidneys improved. Went back every, couple weeks. And then finally I was going back every couple months. And then it was my last kidney doctor visit was a couple months ago already. And they had said that even though they're not 100% functioning, they are functioning normal for someone of my age, because our bodies age and we start to deteriorate. So I actually have no signs of advanced kidney failure or kidney disease. So I don't know if that was a sign from my grandfather telling me that, everything's going to be okay, if he intervened and made things happen, or what. But I was really glad to have him there when he was there. And I really haven't had him back since, just 1 or 2 other times after that. And then, so it's one of those things where it's interesting. So it's amazing how the paranormal can be the paranormal.
Okay. I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
About
you.
time.
I was in backstage. I had to reboot my camera. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. That's fine.
There's
Courtney was saying
at work here.
Yeah, Courtney was saying you were eating cookies.
No, I was wrestling with Hannibal over there.
Right. And speaking of Hannibal, I know you have her, but Josh wants to know if you've ever met the real Annabelle doll.
Oh yeah. I spent a lot of time in the museum. Ed had an office right off the back of the museum. Mm-hmm. Sometimes on a Saturday or Sunday, maybe it was a lousy weather day, he'd call me up and say, "Hey kid, what are you doing today?" I'm like, "Oh, nothing." He's like, "Why don't you come down? I want to show you some stuff." And at one point he would take me through the museum and explain where each item came from and what cases it was. And mm-hmm. That was part of my training. Right. And I learned about cases and the Shadow Doll and Annabelle and the dinosaur from the Galazzo case in Brookfield, Connecticut, the Conjuring 3 movie. Mm-hmm. So that was it was a lot of fun. I miss them dearly. I wish mm-hmm. they were still with us today. Yeah. And I know there's so many people out there that would say to me, they're like, "Oh, I would have loved to have met them and know them." Mm-hmm. Definitely an honor for me.
Yep, definitely. And we know you're attached to Annabelle anyway, because when you were here at Phantasm, I got an amazing photo of you holding Annabelle. You're just grinning from ear to ear.
Yeah, well,
And
that was the movie.
the movie prop. Yep.
Well, it's funny that because Tammy and her husband make those, or Tammy makes
Yeah.
those from scratch,
Right.
and she's making me one. She's going to have it for me when we're in Florida in September.
Yep.
So I'm going to have you hold it for me, or Josh can hold it for me, and I'll have to have you ship it up to me because I don't think they'll let me on the plane with her.
Probably not.
Well, my wife's like, that's not coming in my house. You keep it downstairs. I'm like, this is my Halloween room. So,
Oh no, but I actually want to make a meme out of that one that says, I wish I could find someone who looks at me the way Annabelle looks at Joe, because she just has this adoring look staring at you.
yeah. Well, the real Annabelle doll, it's in the museum. It's in a case behind the glass. And, you've seen the pictures of me with her. I have one from like 20 years ago, and I got this, stern look on my face, and she's over my shoulder.
She's grinning and making fun of you. She's mocking you in that photo.
Yeah, she probably just messed up my I don't know what happened. I did hit the computer with my knee, and then it went out. So, but I had to reboot it, and I got stuck backstage. I'm like, geez, I hope Todd sees me.
Most of the time, Todd's pretty good on that.
Oh, he's awesome.
Yeah, he's been a lifesaver on several shows that I've done. So he's very good.
So, I'm sorry. Did I leave off somewhere? I don't remember.
You were finishing fixing the car. I think you finished it, but I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, the car. So yeah, we went to dinner and we went back to Ed and Lorraine's house. By then it was probably a little after 9, a few minutes after 9 by the time we got there. And I remember Ed saying to me, he goes, Joe, I'd take you down to see the museum, but it's too dangerous. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah. He goes, sometimes if, I don't even go down there after 9 o'clock at night. Cause he said, 9 to, 3 a.m. are like the psychic hours. And that's when the activity starts up. Well, he wasn't kidding, because I was in there one night after 9 o'clock, but I was with him and Laura was with me. And he used to have, I don't know if you remember way back, they used to have Fate magazine, that Paranormal, Fate. Is that still around? I don't think it is. But
I don't think so.
But Fate magazine, and he used to have copies of it in plastic sleeves, and they were pinned to the wood rafter, that goes across the museum. And Lorraine yells down, Ed, you got a phone call. So, or he yells to him or something. And he says, kids, I'll be right back, but don't touch anything. So I shoved my hands in my pocket, and I'm like, I'm just looking around. And this is like the first time I was in the museum. And all of a sudden, Laura taps me. She goes, why is that happening? And we look up, and the magazines in the sleeves started to sway, very slowly. And it was all of them. There must have been, I don't know, 8 or 10 of them. And they're all swinging back and forth, and they're going faster and faster. And there wasn't the wind. There were no open windows or doors. But Ed comes back in. He looks up and goes, all right, kids, we got to get out of here. He says, it's too dangerous. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, here I am, a big guy, not scared of anything. I had to use their bathroom, I think. But I got tons of stories like that, but we'll save it for other time. I don't want to monopolize your time here.
It looks like, I think, oh, excuse me, Fate is still running because their website is active and you can order back issues.
Really?
Yeah, and I
haven't heard about it in many years. So
yeah, and then at the bottom of the page on the issues, because you can order them by every 10 years, they have them listed, and then 2010 to present.
Oh, I'll have to check it out. Send me the link when you get a minute.
Okay.
If you can, and
yeah.
I don't remember what issues they were. My memory is not that good.
Yep. Okay.
But I spent a lot of time in that museum.
Yep. I wish I could have. That would have been. I being the former journalist that I am, I would actually want to sit down with Annabelle and just do an actual, not so much a EVP session, but like a journalistic type EVP session. Kind of approach it a little bit differently, just to see how she would.
we went to their house. It was Ed's, I think it was his 65th birthday. I remember because Tony cooked all the food. It was delicious, by the way. And a couple of friends, other investigators were there, and we asked Ed if we could spend the night in the museum. And he's like, yeah, no. He says, I don't know what the reason was, but I think he said something like, Joe, if I didn't love you, I'd let you stay in there. Like, because, but we were willing to spend the night in there. And I know since then people have done it, but I never did spend the night, in the museum. And I wanted to do it by myself, but I wouldn't advocate anyone to do that. It's always good to work in the buddy system, but I've worked on a lot of cases by myself, but it's because I really didn't have anybody to help me.
Yeah. And we have 2 quick questions that I think we have time to get both of them in. The first one is from Courtney. What are on your bucket list places? And she wants to know from both of us.
You go ahead. I'm talking too much.
Well, a couple of places that I definitely want to, oh my goodness, it's been a long day, is the Sydney Opera House down in Australia. I definitely want to get there. The stories could only be just amazing at that location. And then I want to do a bike tour of all the pubs in Ireland.
Ooh.
And instead of drinking pub to pub, just do an EVP session from pub to pub.
I'd love to do that.
How about you, Joe?
Oh, me? Oh my God, it's a long list, but I'll spare you. I definitely want to go to Alcatraz. Alcatraz, I don't know, it just draws me there, but I'd like to go not on a tour. I'd like to go, with some of you guys, just us, small group.
Yep.
I always wanted to go to some of the old castles in Scotland and Ireland. And it's some of the ones that have the catacombs underneath and the tunnels with the skulls and everything. And I've always wanted to go there, and many other places. But that's one thing on my bucket list. And also the Amityville house.
Yeah.
Just to say I was there. I mean, I've been by it, but so it's private residence, and it sold, I think, in 2016 for only $650,000.
And that's not bad
a
for
lot
that
considering
area.
where it is with the river in the back and the boathouse in it right on the water. The Lutzes only paid $80,000, which was a steal back in 1975, I think it was. But yeah, I mean, those are just a few places, but I've got a lot of them.
Yep. Yeah. When you come to Florida, we need to go to Coral Castle down in Miami. This guy built a castle out of coral that he pulled from the reef. Cool. And it just he worked at night.
That he lives in?
He's passed.
Oh, well, is it like a house or is it just?
It's a house and a full castle with a garden and everything. And he built it overnight. And people think that he had some magical or alien helping him, because he had these, they were big chunks. They weren't just little chunks, and it was only him doing it. And he only worked at night under the cover of darkness because he didn't want anyone to see what he was doing. Right.
And you just reminded me, Florida, with your book coming out, I love lighthouses. I'm a lighthouse aficionado, and so any lighthouse that has a ghost story to it and is alleged to be haunted is just a bonus for me.
Oh, yeah.
So I would love to visit some of these haunted lighthouses in Florida and elsewhere.
And even though St. Augustine is a fun place to go, the best lighthouses that I've been to are the Ponce de Leon Inlet up in the Daytona area, and then Jupiter Inlet, which is just north of West Palm Beach.
So have you ever been to like St. Augustine Lighthouse?
Yeah.
I've been to it, but not in it because it was closed when we got there. We were just driving through because we were going to Disney back in 2009. But I always said I'll get back to go in there, but I never did, unfortunately.
Yep, yeah. And Josh is commenting, Hart Castle in the Thousand Islands area and Old Fort Henry in Canada. He's been trying to get me to go there for years to investigate.
Have you ever been to upstate New York, Fort Ticonderoga and Fort William Henry?
No, I haven't been, but we have family in upstate New York.
A lot, French and Indian wars and Revolutionary War. It was very a lot of people died there. A lot of lives lost. So there's got to be, there's got to be. Of course, the forts have been, well, at least I know Fort Ticonderoga, most of it was destroyed. I didn't know that until recently. Ken and I went there last year on our way to Plattsburgh, and we stopped by there, and They were telling us the history of it, and only part of the fort remained, and everything else was like recreated, rebuilt.
Yep.
But that's where the Green Mountain Boys and Benedict Arnold, before he was Benedict Arnold, defeated the British and stormed the fort. I love history, but anything like with lighthouses and ghosts and history, I'm there.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And I'm looking forward. And actually, Courtney was talking, I think you want to read about the castle that I was just talking about. I am doing a lot more research on it. So make sure you follow us or follow me, because it is a topic in not my next book coming out, but my third book about Florida coming out next year. It's going to be about different roadside attractions. And that is one of the most visited roadside attractions in Florida.
Robert the Doll too. That's what I want to see. Robert the Doll down in Key West. Bill's working on that.
He doesn't want to see you.
I'm going to give him a hug. If they'll let me, I'll hug him. They say you need to be respectful. I'll give him a big hug and a smooch.
Yeah. And then our last question before we need to start wrapping things up. Vicky wants to know, what are your most treasured paranormal keepsakes that you own?
Yeah.
That's like picking your favorite child.
Yeah. If you want to take that first, because I'm going to show you one.
Yeah, I have a couple. Of course, none of them are near me right now.
You'll find it.
But a friend of mine, many, many, many years ago, she did a trip out to Jerusalem, and then they went to the Vatican, and she brought me back a cross that's blessed by the Pope. So I have that, and I just have it stored away because it's not part of my arsenal. But I do appreciate that she thought of me and brought that back for me, and I have it just in case I need it. And then I'm trying to think. I have a piece of a brick from the Goldfield Hotel from when they did renovations. And I think that's about, I really don't have because I don't do keepsakes really. I'm just like, and or the only other thing that I have with me at all times is I have a container of blessed sea salt from Reverend Sean Whittington that I carry everywhere I go for investigations.
Yeah, well, that's useful.
Yep. When we moved, I sprinkled it around our whole patio, and
well, I'll keep you safe. I have a lot. But the most precious things to me are things that were given to me by Ed and Lorraine. And I also have a set of rosaries that a good friend gave me that was brought back from the Vatican and is blessed by the Pope. And that comes with me on every case. But if I was just to pick one, I would say it was the Bible that my grandfather was holding when he passed. I bring that on every case with me. And I remember years and years ago, my mom gave that to me. And she wasn't exactly sure if that was the exact Bible, but thank God I still have my uncle. And I just talked to him a couple weeks ago. I was with him, and I asked him, and he said, "Yeah, that's the one." So I've always believed it was, but I got proof. But one thing I could show you guys. I don't know if you can see it with my camera. It's the reflection. The White Lady of Union Graveyard. This is an original print from the painting. Unfortunately, there's like not a coffee stain, but it got wet or humidity got to it. And someday I'd like to have it professionally restored, but I understand it's extremely expensive. So I've got it safekeeping now, but it's November of 1993, and it was signed by Ed and Lorraine, to Joe and Laurel, our good friends with love and prayers, Lorraine Warren and Ed Warren. Now, Ed didn't sign a lot of things to my knowledge. It was always Lorraine that would say love and prayers, Ed and Lorraine Warren. She usually signed everything like that. But I have some articles that were given me by the family. I have a painting. I can't take it down to show you, but I'm looking at it now. It's one of the original painting, because Ed and Lorraine were artists in their younger years, and they used to drive down the street. They'd see an interesting house, and Ed would get out of the car, take his stuff out, and draw a sketch of the house. And then they'd send Lorraine up to the door and knock on the door, and then they would get invited in for tea and look around the house and everything. So that was a really cool story. But I have one of Ed's tape recorders. I don't know what or if it was used on any cases, but it's an old tape recorder. I think it's back to the late 70s, early 80s. I have another set of rosaries that Lorraine gave me. They were hers. I'm looking at the original Demonologist book, the paperback, the small one,
Right.
The first series that came out. I have that signed by both of them, along with other books. I've got about 5 or 6 of their books signed. But in later years, Lorraine signed them because it had passed in 2006.
Yeah.
I love this, and I protect this with my life.
Oh, and how time flies. But it looks like we are out of time for today again. Yeah, and
not my fault.
No, it's not your fault this time. No. But again, just to remind everybody, we will not be live next week due to the station taking a break, but we will return in 2 weeks. And hopefully, if Joe can get his at least one daughter on board,
I'm sure
we'll have the kids on. If not, we'll come up.
I'm sure I'll at least have Emily. You know,
Perfect.
but I want to get Haley too, the twins.
Yep, definitely.
Haley doesn't live. She's in New York now, though.
Yeah. Well, we'll have fun with it. We'll pick on the kids for a little bit, but thank you, Joe, again. I love doing this show. Great chit-chatting back and forth. Not that we don't talk enough as it is.
Yeah.
And
thanks for everybody for listening to me.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we will see you in 2 weeks. You guys all have a great night.
Everybody. Thank you, Heather. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Bye, guys. Bye, everyone.
The truth is here and now on WLTKDB Talk Radio at WLTKDB.com.